is, how do you now develop the kind of consciousness that can remain in the mind? And that becomes the basis for a great training, a great teaching. Let's say a few things then, again, just in review of these different modes of being that the Tibetan Buddhists have called um, the states of Bardo. Um, and remember, we said that this Bardo simply means these are transitional states of our being. These are modes of being. We talk about the Bardo of life, the Bardo of death and dying. We talk about the next mode of being, which is the afterlife. And then the fourth Bardo, the mode where we are actually entering into rebirth cycles. And it's very interesting to see what goes on in each of these Bardos. Uh, we're going to talk about, I think, the practices that have to be undergone in order to deal with this Bardo of life. Because I like very much what the brother said here, because it goes right to the heart. One of the Rinpoche, one of the gurus says that uh, recognizing this infinite variety of appearances as a dream, as nothing more than the projection of your own mind, not grasping and not clinging to anything, resting in the wisdom of your Rigpa is the heart of the practice for the Bardo of this life. As it's just a small saying, but it contains immense insight. What the Guru Sahib is saying is that we somehow have to develop the capacity to perceive and experience the infinite variety of things going on around us as a dream. What is meant by as a dream? Because remember, until you are able to experience this as a dream, you can't get into the now. What do they mean by that? The Hindus talk about Maya, talk about the nature of life as an illusion, unreal. What is that?
Something that you just experience.
What is a dream? How do you experience dreams now?
Through visualization.
Yes, through visualization. We all have had a dream, right? A dream is sometimes experienced as being real, isn't it? Right? But we usually come to another level of wakefulness when we realize that it's not real. That this dream is a projection of our minds, isn't it? This is the revolutionary insight of the Gurus, is that everything is nothing more than a projection of our own minds, just like a dream is the projection of our mind. And recognizing that, to be able to recognize that, and not grasp and not cling, to rest in this wisdom, is the heart of the practice for this Bhagwan. When we talk about what practices do we need to do in this life to help prepare us for the next mode of being. When we're not able to do that, then we're going to become very attached, aren't we? We're going to have a lot of traumatic experiences in terms of anger, lust, greed, and our the egos and all these other things, right? We're going to fall prey to a lot of negative thinking. We're going to generate a lot of karma, all kinds of things. Right? How do you do this? I want you to really consider that. at all these stunned faces here. It's really interesting to me. Each one sitting here is going to die. Each and every one of us sitting here is in motion towards cessation. This is not an option. This is not an option. This is not philosophy. You're going to die. You're going to enter into dissolution. What are you going to do? You're going to lose your body. You're going to lose all your relationships. All of this is going. All of the 5 elements, the 5 tattvas that make up the foundation of your being are simply going to dissolve. What are you going to do? What are you doing to prepare yourself for that? Because it's going to happen. All of the stuff that you attach to, you're going to lose it. All of it. Your children, your husband, your wives, your cars, your houses. You're going to lose your whole body. How are you going to handle that? And remember, philosophy is not going to help you. The mystics say that the only way that you're going to handle the next Bardo is that you have to learn to die now while living. How are you going to do that? And it's not an option. Yeah, meditation. Right? I want you to really understand your dying and your death is not an option. And you don't know how you're going to die, and you don't know under what circumstances you're going to die. You don't know when you're going to die. The only thing you can be certain about is those 2 things. You're going to die, and you don't know when, how, or where. Those are the only 2 things you can be absolutely certain about. And everything and everybody you know is going to also die under these same conditions. And you don't have an option. And what are you going to do? See, I like to emphasize that over and over again because I want us to understand that our spiritual practices must be rooted on this reality. It has nothing to do with religious emotionalism. You see? Our pursuit of spiritual practices has to be based on this reality. And it has to prepare us for this reality. Family said meditation. Yeah. In what way does meditation prepare us?
Withdrawing the consciousness from the 9 apertures of the body, and you take the consciousness and focus in at the eye center. So I guess you lose consciousness of your body.
That sounds technically right. I want some passion though, huh? I want some passion. Is this too morbid of a subject? No? Not too morbid.
Things that we don't want to talk about.
The things we don't want to talk about though, but it's reality. But mystics say that the first thing you got to work on is your anger, your lust, your greed, your attachment, and your ego. You got to start breaking down this grasping tendency. Even to meditate. Most of us can't meditate. You know? I mean, think about it. We said meditation, but the problem is that you can't meditate. The problem is that your whole attitude toward meditation is out of whack. It is not sufficient to be grounded in deep insight. There's been no reflection on death, dying, and impermanence to make your meditation a very serious thing. You can't meditate because you're too attached. You're too attached to the bed in the morning. You're too busy for this. You're too busy for that. Our lives is filled with so much trivial nonsense
Okay.
that you can't even find any time to practice. Not serious practice. So even meditation becomes impossible for most of us because we're so caught up in this thing. I mean, think about it. Uh, uh, what does our day-to-day life really consist of? You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you fix yourself something to eat, you use the washroom, you shower, you dress, right? You have breakfast, you do last night laundry, right? Then you grab your briefcase, you rush off to work, and then you come home, watch some TV, endless nonsense. None of that which prepares you for that. And you can't do any meditation because you're so caught up into that. You're so caught up into that. So you're right, Pam, meditation can help us, but how do we get to meditation? How do we get to meditation? The key to help us, huh? How do we get to meditation? Yeah, you can do that. Maybe we should just pause here a moment. How many has really thought seriously about their death and dying? How many of you have really thought seriously about your death and dying? How many of you have visualized your dying, your death? You have, Khadija? Tell us about this. Let me get close so I can hear you. Because if you have not seriously contemplated your own death and dying, you're not going to understand this teaching. You're not going to be able to follow this thing. This thing just going to be philosophy for you. Oh, it's nice, you know, we're sitting in the park, we're having a good time, we're talking deep stuff. And then you will leave from here and you will enter back into this trivial life that you've been living from day one. Khadija, you thought about your death and your dying.
I've always thought about it a lot as a child,
Mm-hmm.
but I've never been afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw my grandfather die, and recently both my parents. And I've thought about how I would like to die and watching one of my parents seemed to go very peacefully, and one seemed to really be fighting, dying. And one seemed to be unconscious, but yet was waiting for one of the children to come before they died, even though they.
I want to know about your dying.
I'm saying all this to say, I'm saying that I thought about it a lot, and then that has a lot to do with my concept of dying, because
You think you'll die like your mother or your father?
I was looking at it saying I don't want to struggle.
You don't want to suffer. So when you think about your death, one of the things that you think about, you don't want to suffer like that, do you?
It was not much so much suffering as, I guess the struggling is suffering, but struggle.
You don't want to struggle.
I don't want to struggle.
What else
I don't want
when
to
you think about your dying?
Well, when I thought of dying, sort of a tremendous nap.
You were with us on the naive side of it, huh?
I guess it's naive. I never thought of it as terribly unpleasant. It seemed like that's we were talking about. I missed last week, and Pia mentioned to me that about an experience I had told her about in third grade, because she said, you don't seem to like this topic. And I said, well, I don't, because there's things that I've set aside as they aren't so bad. And dying was one of them. And when we started talking about there's work to do now to die, I feel like I'm laden with work to live. And, but after you said today that, that it can help to live, so I can see that they tie in, because it just originally sounded like more stuff to do.
Who have thought deeply, seriously about their death? Yes, brother.
Well, I believe I've thought deep and seriously.
I used to
And it was through a process of detachment. When I found myself detaching from materialism and detaching from other things, I said, well, death must be like this. This is simply a matter of becoming totally detached. And I realized that I could die. It gave me maybe there's a sense of freedom.
Yes, a great sense of freedom. When we contemplate our own dying, it causes us to encounter exactly our degree of attachment, who we're attached to, right? And remember, you have to start. You feel it. It's not just an intellectual thing. You actually start feeling it. And you can feel exactly where you cling, where you're grasping it, right? Yes, sister.
I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about that, but since I've been exposed to the teachings, well, this is going to sound strange, but since I understand that my soul is going to be involved in activity after it leaves this body, there have been times I have looked forward to it.
Yes.
But because I think I'm no longer afraid of that, and like the brother said, you can detach yourself from these things that you have attached yourself to, which you thought you were, and you no longer identify with these. Your family, you're not you because of your family or your relationships or the things that you possess. And I think once you come to that understanding, then and like you said earlier, you can let go and you can look forward to what's in store for your soul after this body. Honestly, at times I have looked forward to
Yes,
it.
nothing wrong with it. Actually, what happens, you see, when you are able to start detaching yourself, even just at an intellectual level, you will feel a rush of joy and freedom. That's actually an experience that you will have, as if a great pressure has went off of you, right? A great sense of liberation and relaxation sets in. That's just the outcome of just the intellectual part of it. You can't begin to imagine when you go deeper into it, right? When you contemplate your death, Satarah has a comment, and when you contemplate your death, your dying, right? All kinds of things begin to emerge. And one of the things that you begin to really reflect on is, what have you done with your life? Really, what are you doing with your life? Really, what are you doing with your life? What have you done? It is interesting in near-death experiences. Very often the person that has had the experience will tell you that the light that greets them at the end of that tunnel very often poses that question. It'll say, Dorothy, what are you doing? What did you do with your life? What have you done? It makes you really stop, pause, and deeply reflect. What are you doing with your life? Really? Satra, you've contemplated your dying and your death. What have you seen?
Seen this big light.
You seen a big light at the end of a tunnel?
Now, I recall when I was a child, I was the most hard-headed kid that you could ever imagine. And I remember my grandparents and my parents used death as a method of discipline. All right? If you live a fast life, you want to die at a young age. All right? They used to be scared uh, will scare me
Mm-hmm.
in terms of my behavior. You know, boy, if you stop being so hard-headed, if you don't learn how to man, you're gonna die. And so I always feared death as a child.
Mm-hmm.
All right. One of the things in which that I recall that the only reality that I saw to life was death. All
Mm.
right. The only monster or only movies in which that I was terrified of was Dracula
Mm.
because of the coffin and the cemeteries and
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing. So as I grew up, one of the things in which that I always was fascinated about was this thing called death. What really happens?
Mm.
And especially when I got off into the drugs and the alcohol, I was trying to kill myself getting high.
Mm. Mm.
And the
Mm.
bottom line was that I think I played with it. I really played with death.
What do you all think you're going to experience at death?
Only thing that I think about, and I'll shut up after this, is the reunion with all the loved ones that was once a part of my life.
So you figure that when you die, you will experience reunion with your loved one. What else? What do you think you're going to experience when you die, Ricky?
Well, before we talked last week, I was always afraid of death because I just saw darkness, and that was my thing, and I didn't see anything but darkness. I believed in reincarnation on
Mm.
one hand, but when I would visualize death, I would just see it.
Oh, an abyss of
Yeah,
darkness, an
and
oblivion.
my mother's thing of an endless nap was frightening to me. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what am I going to do? Just, be in this dark thing, sleeping forever?
And a void.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that frightened me. I was like, well, what am I going to do with that?
In the darkness of non-existence.
Yeah.
That you just come to an end,
Yeah.
oblivion. Yes, brother.
I think that we would probably experience the magnitude of our attachment, of our desire.
You will experience that in the process of dying. In the process of dying, last week we talked about it. For those of you who weren't here, we talked a little bit about the whole process of dying. What happens in the process of dying. And if you recall, we talked about the fact that the first thing that is happening is that the five elements of earth, water, fire, air, space, or ether will begin to dissolve. Is that right? And that as you enter into this process of dying, that is exactly what is going on. You are consciously experiencing the dissolution of your whole physical base upon which you have been living. And sometimes it can be a very rapid process. It depends on what condition you will die under. We made the assumption that all of us would die that natural death at home in your bed, surrounded by loved ones. Try to give you the best possible scenario. And then to go deeply into that scenario and examine what you can look forward to. And remember, this is not optional. Dying is not optional. Meditation, you still see it, oh, that's optional, but one, maybe I can meditate, maybe I won't meditate. Hell, it depends on how I feel. Okay, right? Maybe I will go to church, maybe I won't go to church. Okay. But your dying is not optional. That's going down, and you will go through the dying process. And you will begin to experience the dissolution of the very basis and foundation of what you've been calling yourself. Not only will this body start dissolving, your ego will start dissolving. Your whole identity of who you are will start dissolving. That thing you think you are will start dissolving, moving into a place that you don't know nothing about, right? Remember we said that as you land on your deathbed and entering into the process of dying, the first element, the earth element, will start to slowly dissolve and disintegrate, and you will start having the experience of the loss of energy, fatigue, you see. One of the mystics said it will feel ultimately when the process is complete as if a whole mountain has collapsed upon you. Right? As that earth element now dissolves into the water element, you see. The body starts losing all of those functions that were dependent upon water, right? And so forth and so on. We won't repeat it. I'm sure it's available somewhere for those of you who have not had a chance to really reflect. But certainly, you need to, when I say contemplate your death and your dying, I mean that you should actually see, feel as much as you can how this whole process is going to take place in you. Yes, Khadija?
I think that we have these sort of mini deaths while we're alive
Yeah.
that are taking place, and what some of the things that we've learned in satsang to me help me understand that that like losing who you thought you were through a divorce, losing the house that belonged to you, the parents that belonged to you, and we see those things. I lost a lot of things very quickly, and on one hand, people say, "Well, oh, this is such a tragedy," but then it's like I'm at the same time sort of observing, and I'm seeing that I'm still alive as a result of those losses. I became exposed to other things, and so there was a death of that. But then now, like we were saying the other night, that I'm still here, but evolving. But
Yeah.
I'm learning that I feel less attached as a result of those little deaths.
In fact, I like your point because you're absolutely right. Even before we enter into the final process of God, the ultimate process, the grand dissolution, these many dissolutions are continuously occurring in the form of our life, aren't they? Right? And how do we handle this?
I was to make a connection. When you come into the world, you're in the process of dying.
Yes.
And what helps me to deal with that is living right now, being the best that I can be, to my fullest potential for this moment.
Yes.
And enjoying, and not even thinking or even considering about
Yeah.
the end result.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the great mystics says that man's sorrow is born with him at the time of his birth, and that from that point on, he just becomes more and more stupid because he begins to try to avoid that which is unavoidable. So our ignorance goes on escalating. But Khadija has a good point. You both have a good point that belongs together, and that is that from birth we enter into this process of dying. It begins at birth, don't it? The moment you come out of the mother's womb, this process sets into place. And how do we experience this death? In the form of losses, don't we, Khadija? And the question becomes, how you handle losses? Because remember, how you handle losses is going to have a lot to do with how you handle the ultimate thing. And if you can't go through these little deaths, you are not going to like dying. As Kiba says, Kiba says she's like dying. You won't be a Kiba. You're not going to like it. It's going to be hell for you. Because we have not even developed the spiritual awareness to go through the little things. These mini deaths, as Khadija called them, right? And that is one of the things that characterizes the Bardo of life, this mode of being that we're in now. There is a constant flow of death, episodes of death taking place. Death of relationships. And when these relationships end, you can't handle that. Look at how you handle the death of your relationships. Friends that turns into enemies, divorces. Look how you handle that. Jobs. Even the loss of material things. You lose something now, you just break down and you start crying like a baby. And these are just little losses. Many losses. Tiny bardos that we're going through. It gives us an idea then of how totally unprepared we are. It don't it? Right? And so by examining the way that you are handling the bardos of this life, in form of losses is going to tell you a lot about what you are going to have to do on your in terms of working on yourself spiritually to get ready when the Bardo of dying and death sets in. And remember, you have to look at yours. Look at yours. What are you doing with it? Are you in denial? When you have a loss, when something dies, when something transformed, goes to the next thing, what do? Or are you a clinger? Are you a Klingon? Are you grasping? Or is your reaction anger? It's interesting. Most of us start off in denial, first of all. That seems to be our only strategy for dealing with death, dealing with loss, dealing with separation. We go into denial, all right? We try to deny the reality of it. No, she still loves me. Now the woman don't love you no more. It's over, it's gone, done. But no, she really loved me. I just need to. We're into denial for a long time, right? Or we lose the job. Oh, well, they're gonna hire me back. It was a mistake. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be transferred. We go through all kinds of nonsense, right? And after it really sets in that no, the man don't love me no more, and he's gone. Or no, they're not transferring me. This pink slip is permanent. I'm out of here, right? When we come out of that denial, the next reaction is anger. And that anger is rooted in your fear because you're scared to death now, right? The foundation on which you were living has been pulled out from under you, and you experience terror. And I want us to understand is that it is the way that we have handled these many deaths that's going to dictate how you handle the big dying. And if this is how you handle the little things, when you start losing this body, and remember, you're sitting in this body. It is almost like what they do to animals when they kill them while they're alive, where they skin them while they're alive, while your consciousness is still in you, while you being stripped down of everything that you have ever considered yourself to be. That's deep. And your Quran and your Bible and your bullshit is not going to help you. Your money is not going to help you. People you know, your fame, your status, all your ambitions, none of that is going to do that. Just you and this naked dissolution.
Aren't those things like necessary, like the many deaths? It seems like you cannot...
It's not a question of necessary. It is going on. You see, that's the point. We think this stuff is can or cannot. You are dying, even at the biological level as we speak. Neurons are disappearing out of you, cells. It's not optional.
No, I'm not saying optional. I'm just saying it just seems like it's necessary for you to grow. It seems like it's hard to imagine loss and to learn. It seems like if you never lose anything, then you don't have. It seems like you can't understand that you can attach to it if you never lose it.
Yes.
So
yes.
it seems like it's necessary that you do go through these things so that you kind of understand attachment.
Sure. In fact, it's to give you a good insight, Andrew, into our attachment. And that's why I say, what are you attached to? What are you attached to? Do you know your attachments? Really?
But, the other thing is, it seems like, I don't know, lately, I had everything, any time I go through any type of loss, it seems like it's two types of emotions. One is the emotional side saying, but it's the other side that says this is just a process, and it's kind of like, it's like you feel it, but you don't feel it. It's like I've lost a lot of things too, but it's like every time I lose something, it's like one small part of you goes through the emotional side, but the other side of you is just like, kind of like you said a long time ago, like the witness, or just saying, that's just life. I don't feel that strong attachment.
Sometimes you see, brother, we suppress these things out of awareness. What are you attached to? What are your attachments? Money. All right, thank you. All right, we get some real money attached to your money. What else?
My child.
Attached to your child. Give me real stuff. You attached to these kids, ain't you?
Having my freedom.
Freedom, you're attached to freedom. That's attachment. That's a deep attachment. And one day that freedom gone. When you land in the death process and the elements are breaking down, you can't get up out of your deathbed, you can't go nowhere, you can't come out here in the park, you can't take a stroll. Freedom is gone. You just locked now in this dying and death process. Right? But that's right. The point is that sometimes the things you're attached to is not even physical. It's abstract. We can get attached to an ideology, can't we? Yes. And the question becomes, and these are questions you have to answer for yourself. What are your attachments? And you got to get as light as possible. Because it is your attachment that makes the dying process painful. Please make a note of that. It is the degree to which you have become attached in this Bardo of life that dictates how much pain you will experience at the time of death. And even for a seasoned spiritual practitioner, there will still be some pain. Even for those who are meditative, still there's going to be some pain. It will be less, of course, but pain is inevitable. But for those who have not meditated and those who are attached, your pain is going to be like that pain that they describe in the hells of traditional religions. One of the mystics said it will be like the feeling of being burnt alive. Literally. I mean, it's deep. What are your attachments? Yes,
You
sister.
had one in the process of dying, and when you make that transition, can you just simply say, "Well, I'm dead. I knew I couldn't take this with me."
Yes, if you did that
So
before
just let it go.
before you got into the process, but you never practiced that attitude. You don't even have that attitude, and it's not going to suddenly emerge on your deathbed. You're not going to emerge and be able to make these Buddha-like statements. You understand? Because you have not lived the life. You won't have that presence of mind. You will be so terrified, so shocked, in so much pain, sister, you won't have the presence of mind. You're right, if you can recognize it, you see. But to be able to do that, sister, you would have to have practiced prior to that point. You see. Yes, sister.
I think that after you lose a couple of physical things, like you said, the people, places, and you start to feel like, okay, I can survive that. Then there are the other attachments that aren't physical.
Right.
Like I find that I struggle with a sense of attachment, my sense of independence.
I'm sorry, sister.
My sense of independence.
Your independence, you're attached to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to lose that independence.
I feel myself losing it, and
Yes.
I feel like it's almost a bigger struggle than losing my house.
Yes.
It's,
And that produced suffering. And just think, Khadija, it may be that just by way of example, if the way that you are to die is to become almost like helpless, just a piece of meat laying there. People have to feed you, wipe you, change your underwear, put a diaper on you. My mother-in-law died like that. When I was a very young man, my wife, mother, we were young. It was my first experience with the, up close experience, because I watched her as she entered into the Bhagwan. Had been a vibrant lady, beautiful lady, you see, full of life and natural, but had done no preparation, as most of us have done no preparation. And she had bone cancer, and it set in, and you could start seeing it, this being consumed by this. I saw all of her fears, her terror, everything. In fact, she died in my arms. You see. But I watched that, and her life dwindled to a point where we had to put a diaper on her. She lost all control of her bowels, you see, and everything. I mean, all of the things that we describe as these elements collapses and the body begin to lose its ability to do these things, I've witnessed that firsthand. And everything was gone. Now suppose that is your way out of it. Suppose that is the way that you will exit into the next life. Can you imagine how much you're going to suffer? Just having to have people do that, feed you food that runs out of your mouth, wipe you slobbing all over yourself. I mean, these are realities. And I can tell you something. Whatever you are attached to is going to really, really dictate how you die. It's interesting. Whatever you are most attached to, you're going to die in such a way that you're going to experience that attachment, whatever it is. Yes, sir.
You know, in thinking about that, one of the things that ran across my mind is, for the most part, I'm attached
To who?
to fear.
Fear?
I'm attached to fear because, again, it's this
You mean
fear
you like being afraid?
sometimes can't help it.
So you're a victim of fear or you're attached to fear? Which is
Both.
it?
You
You
know,
like your fear?
the fear of even in terms of being on the path, the fear of not seeking that what I have sought or is seeking. The fear of not doing that. The fear of just doing things in which that I desire to do. I'm attached to my desire as a result of that. I have this tremendous fear that those things in which that I desire the most
Won't
will
happen.
not.
Yeah. Well, we know
be
that an
achieved.
undercurrent of fear always runs underneath attachment. That fear that we will not be able to remain attached to the thing. And that always produces a feeling of fear in the background. We know that. The moment the thing that we're attached to is threatened, the fear emerges to the forefront of it, right? But we're attached to a lot of things, and that's one of the exercises, one of the homeworks that we have to really do. We have to reflect. And our reflection on our death, our dying, the reflection on impermanence, you see, has to include a careful, deep reflection into that. You see, our lust, our greed, you see, all of these things, our sensual things. Some of us are just attached to sensual experience. Period. And just the thought that we will not be able to indulge our senses anymore. You see. Yes.
How does one become desirous? Because even the quest for spiritual enlightenment is a desire.
That's the question. You see, that we have to really ultimately get to. Because what is attachment other than our desires? The Buddha says that suffering begins with desires, don't it?
The desire is associated with wants or needs.
Desires associated with wants. They're not related to needs at all. Uh, it is these desires that we have, right, that really shapes and form our attachment. It dictates how we will be attached, right? And what is the basis of the desire? The desire is rooted in ignorance, isn't it? And what is the ignorance that desires are rooted in? It is the failure to recognize that the infinite variety of experiences and events and phenomena that constitute life is nothing but a dream, that they are simply the projection of your own mind. And failing to have that wisdom, you see, you reach out, right? You reach out. We have not seen the nature of the mind. You ask Satra, what are we to do with this desire? Maharaji often said that the only way that you can deal with attachment is to become attached to something else. You cannot become detached and avoid. Detachment occurs by becoming more attached to something else.
So there are positives and negatives.
Of course, all of these things like anger, lust, greed, attachment, and our vanity, all of these negative emotions, right, have a positive side to them too. For instance, if we could take our lust and lust for enlightenment, lust for the experience of the true nature of mind, right, then that energy will begin to fuel our sadhana, right? It depends on what we do with it. It depends on what we do with it. But the first level of insight has to be into the nature of your own attachments, because this is what's going to really generate the pain. Not only at the time of death, it is what is generating the pain in this life, isn't it? See, that's the beauty of that. All of the suffering that we are experiencing in this Bardo is directly related to our attachments. Directly related to our attachments. Right? And to the extent that we are become aware, and sometimes it's just to become aware of these things. That's the beauty of understanding. There's no tricks involved, just sheer understanding of that. And realizing that I cannot grasp that. What is attachment? Attachment is the attempt to grasp and hold on to experience, particularly those experiences from which you have derived some momentary pleasure. And we grasp that thing and try to hold on in order to perpetuate the experience of the pleasure. And this perpetuation of pleasure is what we think constitutes happiness. Right? And yet we cannot grasp onto the phenomena by the very nature of the phenomena. And when we find that our grip does not hold, then we get angry. We become revengeful. And our suffering just goes on. Yes, Satra?
So as long as we remain in this human body, we always will be filled with this desire.
As long as we remain not only in this human body, but in any body, until we have the experience of the true nature of mind, that all these things are not different from our mind, and therefore there's nothing to grasp. Until that experience happens, we will be subjected. Desires will follow you up to the astral region, the causal region, you see, until the mind merges back into its emptiness. And so we have to begin to understand a lot about the very nature, the true nature of our minds. But here we starting just at the embryonic stages. This is not going to be something we can do in a couple of hours, is it? Right? I mean, we'll have to have many of these kind of meetings if we really, really wanted to go deep into it. But I wanted to set the scene so that we really understand when I talk about the entering into the dying process, the final dissolution, that is preceded. We could get some insight into how we're going to be able to go through our dying by looking at how we're going through our life in terms of the losses we're experiencing now, right? And that'll give us a great insight and gives us something to do. And remember, folks, this is not optional. I have to repeat that because we have been so confused by religions. Yeah, your religion is optional. Whether you're an atheist, not an atheist, whether you're Buddhist or Muslim or Christian or Hindu, all that is optional. Dying is not optional. That's not optional. You're going through that. This real deal stuff. That's going to happen. You're going to lose something. You're going to lose something in life. Something that you was very dependent upon for your experience of pleasure. And you're going to lose that. And how are you going to handle that? And ultimately, you're going to lose this very body. You're going to lose your mind, because at the time of dissolution, in the process of dying, not only is the body dissolving, the mind itself is dissolving. You're going to lose your senses, folks. You're not going to be able to hear that jazz anymore in the background. Laying on your deathbed, that music will start disappearing as your sense of hearing collapses and dissolves. You can't hear nothing no more. You can't see nothing. Your vision is going. That too will dissolve. All of the five senses will dissolve along with this body, because they're also made of the subtle material of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And they too will undergo the dissolution. How are you going to handle that? What are you doing to be prepared for that? And remember, I know you're saying, well, Bhagwan, we know all of these things. No, you don't. You don't know it until you are able to integrate this insight into your day-to-day living, until you are carrying this insight moment to moment to moment. Well, you ready to die under any circumstances. How many are ready to die under any circumstances? Because you may get wiped out by a Mack truck on the expressway. Will you be ready? You don't know. Oh, you have one. So, begin by reflecting on and investigating the nature of your attachments, and start doing whatever needs to be done to free yourself from the grip of these things. As this dissolution process takes place, now we come, brother, to the moment of death, don't we? Right? And what is death? Other than the mind being stripped down of all of its covers. It's interesting, isn't it? Death is nothing but your returning to your fundamental identity, where all of the things that you've been thinking you are is gotten dissolved. The body is gone now. You can no longer carry on the illusion that you are the body. It's gone. You cannot carry on the illusion that you are your senses. They are also gone. Everything is gone. And what remains is your true identity. Yes, Lieutenant?
On the book of Job, is that what that's all about? Preparing him for death, lost his family, his wealth, and all those other things.
I think in the
Physical health.
I think in the book of Job is a good illustration of what happens when in this Bardo of life, when we start undergoing the loss of those kind of things described in that book. And Job's reaction to that, you see. I think it is our story, isn't it? At some point, if it has not already happened, but it's on its way. And that is just the ending of this Bardo of life. I mean, we're getting ready now. We're being prepared to undergo the ultimate dissolution. It's a good illustration of, and it shows us how our attachment, our making our happiness the foundation of our possession of these things and these relationships is really doing a great disservice to ourselves. That they will ultimately cause us to die very painfully. Most of us will not die very well at all. We won't die very well. We won't have a good death because we've not had a good life. We won't die very well because we have not handled any losses very well. How do we handle losses? I mean, that's why I say that, again, you're going to get a very, very good insight into your own self and see exactly where you fall on the scale of preparation. When we lose something, Lieutenant, in life, how do we act? I lose my job. I lose my car. I lose my money. How am I reacting? Am I ready to go jump off a bridge? Am I screaming and hollering all over the place? I mean, what am I doing? How do I respond to my losses? Will tell us a lot about what we can look forward to. And if we do not and cannot deal with the emotional loss of things prior to the dying death process, now, when that dying death process sets in, we're really, really going to have a very, very hard time. I mean, we're really going to have an awful hard time. We're going to burn up with fire. We're going to be like a fire.
You just look at it like this. You're not really dead. You're just making a transition.
Yes, now how can you look at it like that? Now how can you look at it like that? If you can only look at it like that if you have already attained the realization, sister, that this is nothing but a dream, and you develop that. But you have to do that now.
That's true.
Now, if we've done that now, can we look in our life? You see, look in your life, sister. Look at the things you lost. How have you responded? Have you responded like that? That this is just a dream? Hell no. When you lost that money, you actually ached in pain. You understand? We mustn't play games with ourselves.
But Bhagwan, all right, now it's different. That's the
Now
way
it's
I used to be. That's the way I used to be.
The teachers have changed you.
It's different now. It's
Well, we will see.
It's karma. You know, life goes on. You get some more
Yeah.
money, you know?
Yes.
Just go on.
Well, your husband is not here today, so we won't be able to get a true insight into whether you retain this or not. You know my policy. I never listen to you, right?
He always says that he likes the way I look at things, you know, the way I put things in their proper perspective, you know?
Nothing wrong with it if one can do it, but that has to be really your heart practice. You see, we need a heart practice as well. Even for those of us who meditate and study and all of that, still there's going to be pain, emotional pain that you're going to experience, for which you need a heart practice to get you through that. You see? So you're right, sister, if we can say that. If we're aware enough, if we have the consciousness to say, the problem is that this happens, sister. As your mind itself, as the outermost layers of the mind, there's three modes of mind, you see. But the mystics have called the Pinda mind, the ordinary mind, the mind that we're in now, the discursive mind, the mind that experiences duality, the mind that is having the experience of the other, the mind that cannot see that this is all a dream. That's the ordinary mind. When you're having difficulty really seeing this as being nothing but a dream, that is a difficulty that is there because you only have ordinary mind. You don't have no higher mode of mind available. It's not developing you. And so for the life of you, you don't care what these mystics and gurus say. This is real. You understand? This solid, this is real. And and your reaction to it will remain that. It is the ordinary mind then that renders us incapable of recognizing this experience and the infinity of varieties of appearances going on around us as being real. But that's just one mode of mind. The next mode of mind is what the mystics call the undermind, you see. It's a little higher, right? It houses all of our psychic abilities, clairvoyance, telepathy, and all of these other things, you see? It gives us a little bit more of a different perspective on life, you see? And when and we're able to operate at that level of mind, you see, then there's no problem in taking most of this stuff as being nothing but an appearance. We're able to really get a little bit more rooted in that. It makes it easier. But then there's the Brahmanda mind, you see, the highest mode of mind, right? The causal mind, right? Where we even transcend all of those lower abilities that we've had even at the astral level, where our experience of time and space is even altered, you see? But that is not the true nature of mind, you see? It's when mind rests in its ultimate thing where all of these are stripped away. And this is what happens at the time of death. Now the problem is, sister, is that if you only have the Pinda mind, the ordinary mind, by the time you get far into the death process, you're going to be unconscious. You would have passed out a long time, you would have fainted a long time ago, right? You don't have the subtlety of consciousness and awareness that'll be even around when ground zero hits. What happens when you hit ground zero, right? There's nothing but the experience of darkness. This is what Rakia was mentioning. That is the actual experience. Because you are hitting that level of mind that preceded all creation. You're moving back into that undifferentiated, unmanifested state of the five elements from which mind and body and all of the experiences that we haven't emerged. You go back to ground zero. There's not even any light yet. Light has not even come into existence. And that is experienced in the form of a great darkness. What the mystics call a sund. You see, great darkness, right? No light yet, you see. And most of us would have lost, we would have been in oblivion a long time before that. You would have fainted. And that moment of death will come and you won't even see it because you're unconscious. And then as that mind begins to unfold again, right? And somewhere far down in the process of unfoldment, you will come back into consciousness at that point in the unfoldment of the mind that you have the ability to become aware of. And that will not be until you reach the last Bardo, the Bardo of becoming, the rebirth Bardo. In those last 49 days, that's when you come back on the scene. And you don't know anything about all of the gaps in between. And you become back in consciousness, and you didn't even know you don't even know you're dead. That's the tragedy of it. You will wake back up into the last Bardo, right? And you will still be totally possessed of your former birth. All of that will be so fresh. You'll wake up and they're at the funeral home now. And you watching them burying you, and you don't know what's going on. You understand? You don't even know you dead. Your whole effort would be to try to get back in your body. You're trying to get back in your body. You see? You're trying to get back into your life. The whole effort would be you trying to get back into your life. What is happening? What is happening? You don't know. You don't have no teachings to explain none of this to you. You're just going through all of this. You don't know what the hell is happening. It's like being on an LSD trip. You just out there and you don't know what's going on. And what is worse, you are still full of all of the shortcomings, weaknesses, and faults you had prior to your death. That karma has reemerged again, right? All of the attachments that you had have reemerged in that awakening as well. Now you see them tearing up your stuff. And this is just making you so angry. They're spending your money. Your husband has got another woman, and your wife has got another man. And, you know, nobody is mourning you. And all of your attachments there, you understand? And this is just tearing you up. It's just tearing you up.
It sounds like hell.
It is hell. That is the hell. That is the hell. And it hurts, right? You dead, and you witnessing your life go right on before your eyes. And you out of it. You see? And you're hearing people that you thought loved you denigrating you. I'm glad that bitch gone. See what I'm saying? That hurts you. You understand? That hurts you. And it's really something. You know? People that you thought loved you, you discover never even cared nothing about you. That hurts you. And you avoided to do all of this spiritual stuff because of them. Swamiji Maharaji, a great mystic that founded the Radha Swami line of gurus out of India, used to say in his Sabachan, his true teachings, he said that in that Bardo, you will experience your children as thieves. You will see how they did none but steal from you. It's a very different thing. You can't see that now. You can't see that now. You see, but in that Bardo, you will see how this was just grand larceny. Stole all your time, all your energy. You see? And they sitting up there and they're not even crying. No one is shedding a tear over you. That's gonna hurt you to see that ain't nobody missing you. That your life was meaninless, insignificant. It was as if you never even existed. And that's gonna tear you up.
If you have prepared for it.
But if you prepare for that's right. That's right, people. Get us out of this one. Get us out of hell. If you had prepared for that, then your experience will be different. If you have prepared, you see, you would have maintained a continuity of consciousness. And when the mind moved into its purest form of emptiness, by emptiness I mean that mind simply returns to a state of pure potentiality. Nothing is differentiated. Your identity would have merged into that. And you will recognize Tatwam Asi, I am that. You will have the experience of Sohang, I am that. Aham Brahmatsi, right? Analhak, Anukasa, I am this. And you will hold on to that identity. And that is what the enlightenment experience is And even as the mind unfolds again, you never lose your identity anymore. Even by the time the mind unfolds down to the level of the body, you know that this too is just an appearance in the vast emptiness of my mind. It's a whole different trip, Keeper. Huh? If one has prepared. But you can begin to see that if we have not prepared, you wiped out. Right? And you will wake up from the moment of your death, you'll wake up in the Bardo state. You will miss the states in between. You won't even know what happened. You won't even have a glimpse. And then out of that horror, you're driven, right? Because in that state of Bardo, I mean, it's terrifying. You're running. You're being tossed hither and thither all over the place. The suffering is too much. And you're just trying to get out of this state. And the place you run into is a wound. You see? The place you run to escape the horror of the experience in this Bardo Asipa is a wound. Because you're running. You have to understand the terror of that experience. You have to understand the terror of being dead and you don't even know it. It's a terrifying experience. And fleeing it, you run into a wound. You may run into the womb of an animal, a blade of grass, a tree, a bird, who knows? Depends on you, driven by fear. So these are the things that we have to understand. And so we have to approach our spiritual preparation very differently. The whole point I'm trying to make here, folks, and I'm not just trying to be morbid or dramatic here, but I'm trying to really make us understand that you're going to die and you're going to enter into death. And if you're not prepared for that, you see, you're going to have a hard time. And even if you're not prepared for that, even before you enter into death, even in this very life, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. You're not going to have much experience of happiness. You're going to be pretty miserable even now in this life. Because you are so inept and so ill prepared to deal with any loss or separation on any level that you're not going to make it. You can't even make it through this mess. Right? And to wean you away from all self-deception, you see? And to put your spirituality on a firm foundation. You know? Yes, sister.
What happens when people, not to idealize our situation, say in another place, but when a mass of people, such as happened with our ancestors, some of our ancestors anyway, are removed from a situation where they might have received knowledge about how to live, how to die, and are thrown, millions of people are suddenly thrown into an environment where there is no communication anymore on that. Is that some type of karma for all those people? Or
Yes.
is that...
Yes, we have individual karma, we got group karma. The fact, for instance, that every human being that is on the planet at this time has a kind of karma to be here at this time. I mean, it gets very, 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 very complex. Very, very, very. Everything follows the law of karma. We all will undergo the consequences of our actions. That is inviolate. Nowhere around that.
But aren't our actions many times, for instance, impacted by something like slavery or...
Sure, because that's called Kriyaman karma. Remember, we did a workshop, I think, down at Access Studio, where we pointed out the fact that you got different kinds of karma. People don't understand karma. They think it's just one solid, seamless phenomenon. No. There is a kind of karma called pralabdha karma that shapes the outward events of your life. You see? And then it's how you react to those events that produces another kind of karma. That's called Kriyaman karma. That is karma that you're creating for the future. And that karma that you're creating for the future, that Kriyaman karma, if you don't have enough future to play it out, that goes into a storehouse of karma called sentient karma. And that sentient karma in turn becomes your pralabdha karma for the next person. You see? So this karma is being generated on all these levels, these three fundamental levels. And so it's how we react as well. In fact, it is how we react. The Kriyaman karma is more critical than the pralabdha karma. It is how you react. Remember, attachment is a reactionism, right? Now, the thing that you got attached to, that might be a part of your pralada karma, that you have this woman, right? And that you're in relationship with this woman, right? But your attachment, that's your reaction, you see? And now that attachment is going to set up a chain of consequences. There's group karma. We might do something as a group, out of which we all have to participate in the consequences. There's racial karma. There's gender karma. I mean, it's all over the place. Karma is what organizes, you see, the experience.
You come on cause and effect, duality of
Cause and effect. And that's at the level of the causal mind. And the beauty is that when you go into the true nature of your mind, when you enter into the emptiness of your mind, when you experience that, the whole experience of karma drops out. There is no karma at that level. I mean, it's karma is really is a form of ignorance, and when it's a form of misunderstanding. I mean, it's deep. We'll have to probably really spend a different session where we have more time to really go into it. But I'm trying to impress upon you and upon myself, to remind myself as well, that we are all moving toward this inevitable rendezvous with dying and death, and that we need to be prepared for, and that this preparation for this death is what's going to make this life sweet. And that's the point I want you to get. You see, I don't want you to think that this has no practical value. It's very practical. By preparing for your dying and your death, it now will start creating a new being in you. And for the first time, you're seeing how fragile this thing is called life. Will cause you to appreciate it more. You appreciate people more. You see, you'll have more compassion knowing that, well, this person is totally unprepared for death. Right? That triggers your compassion. Right? And you become now what in Buddhism they call a bodhisattva. And that's a very different phenomenon. And that's what the world needs, is more bodhisattvas. People who are cognizant of the suffering and pain that sentient beings are undergoing, and have dedicated their life to the alleviation of that suffering. You see? But this level of bodhisattva cannot be attained without a deep reflection on death, dying. Let's take a little break for the washrooms and come back maybe in 10 minutes. Then we just have a few questions and answers, and we'll call it a day for those who have other places to go, and for those who have nowhere to go, you can sit here and we'll listen to the water. Right. So we'll come back in 10 minutes.
Oh, excuse me.
So now that we've had a chance to kind of break the spell of Maya, and that we've summoned up the courage to take a closer look at what is always a very difficult subject, I think we can proceed now to examine some of the things that we can do in a very practical way to help us prepare ourselves not only for the Bardo of this life, but the Bardo of death, the Bardo of the afterlife, and the Bardo of rebirth as well. That we can create a momentum that will benefit us in all of the modes of beings that we're destined to undergo. And what I would like to suggest to you, that the first thing that we do is that on a daily basis, you need to set aside some time. You need to set aside some time that is devoted strictly to your reflecting on death, impermanence, and the law of changes. One mystic said that a man or woman who cannot find an hour to reflect on these matters do not deserve to be a human being in the first place. So you should be able to set aside 1 hour each day where you simply sit. And remember, try to schedule that time when you're most introspective. You know, there's those special times that we all have when we feel very introspective. Have you noticed that? When you feel like thinking deep, right? We all have them. It occurs for us under different circumstances. Whenever I go into the washroom, I feel like thinking deep for some reason. I was I was told that Lao Tzu attained enlightenment while taking a crack. So there may be truth in that statement. So even the washroom could be such a place. But go with your nature. You know, I find also that what's very helpful in bringing about that mood of introspection is nature. Places like this, just getting close to nature, maybe sitting by the water or under a tree, or a nice casual walk alone. Sometimes that helps generate in us the reflective and introspective mood. But you want to begin to create this kind of space on a daily basis where you can move into that mood of reflection and introspection and reflect on the nature of impermanence. Try to see clearly the reality of the fact that nothing is permanent. Try to bring it down from just the level of philosophy. You know, try to see, look, open your eyes and see if you can see anything that will remain permanent around you. You know, press it very hard, you know. Don't play a game with yourself. If you think that you can find something that will be permanent, okay, then just say, okay, well, this will be permanent. But be very exhausted, be very critical of it. You know, bring much doubt to bear upon it. And try to see deeply into the nature of impermanence and see if there's anything that is permanent around you. See if there's anything that you can somehow remove out of the cycle of birth, decay, and death. See if there's anything you can do that to. Look at your loved ones and see if you can really seriously accept the fact that they will always live. See if you really believe that. Look then to see if there's any exception. Remember, the mystics don't want you to take anything on their word. They're not preachers. Preachers, that's their thing. You know, believe whatever I tell you and don't bring any critical thought to the subject. No. These priests and preachers work on blind faith. The mystics do not work on blind faith. Blind faith, in fact, is a guarantee that you will miss the whole point. But look and see. You want to see if what Krishna is saying is true. You want to see if what Buddha is saying is true. You want to see if what Mahavir or Jesus or Kabir or Patahotel or Kajami, you want to see if what they are saying is the truth. You are seekers of truth. And as such, we must hold to that high responsibility to examine these teachings for us. So set aside that time. See if you can truly find anything that is not constantly changing. See if you can find that. See if you can see whether or not this weather remains the same. Can you find anything that is not changing? Try to see that. And don't just look on the naive level. If you're going to turn your attention to the physical thing, look at that tree. Now look deeply at this tree and try to really see that this tree is undergoing constant change. If you can't see it, look deeper, look deeper. Perhaps get you a microscope. You see, cut it open, look deep into it. See if anything has an independent reality, an independent existence. Try to look and see. Does anything out here exist independent and inherently in and of itself? Try to see if this tree would be here if the sun was not here, and the wind was not here, and the earth was not here, and the rains was not here. See if that tree could exist like that. Look at another human being. See, can they exist like that? Are they independently real? Are they inherently real? Or are they interdependent? upon all of these other life forces. But I want you to really do that and reflect on that on a daily basis. Don't expect no miracle overnight. Stick with the process, stick with the practice of reflection and deep contemplation. And then slowly, you will start seeing a turning taking place inside of you. You will start seeing the turning of your own consciousness. You will start generating insights. They will just come out of nowhere at first. You will start having satori's, aha experiences, eurekas, slowly. But remain committed to that. Look into the teachings, deeply into the teachings, and reflect on them. If you are truly desirous of going beyond this illusion, then you need to add a secondary part to your practice. This practice of letting go. People, we have to practice letting go. As you move throughout the day, throughout events, start training yourself, making yourself very conscious and deliberately letting go of experience moment to moment. I don't mean to say that you don't enjoy. Please make a note of that. I am not saying don't enjoy life. No. What I'm saying is that you will reach a certain level of renunciation automatically, a certain level of detachment. Your tendency to grasp and cling will start disappearing by consciously practicing the letting go of the events that flow through life. And try to see these events flowing through life as made of the same stuff that dreams are made of. Look at your yesterday. You are experiencing your yesterday. Don't it feel like a dream? Brother had an insight. Anything that occurs outside of the moment takes on the quality of a dream. Please make a note of that. Look into this. Look into this closely. Look into this closely. And see with your own eyes that anything that you are having an experience of or have ever experienced that is outside of the now takes on the nature and flavor of a dream. Now look, Dorothy, so many years ago at your childhood, it almost feels like a dream. It has that quality of a dream. Yes, it happened, but you see, it is not as real as this moment is. Try to see, is there anything that you are carrying around that is as real as this moment? And notice this moment, how it moves. How it is constantly moving. And get in sync with the movement of the moment. Get in sync with that. What the Tao is called flowing with the Tao. Get in step with that. Right? And just move with that. And without clinging or grasping. That's important. We have to start training ourselves to cease clinging and grasping. And remember, you have to first catch yourself. It's not going to be done overnight. At first, try to catch yourself grasping. Try to catch yourself grasping. And you will, if you practice this hard, you will catch yourself right in the midst of grasping. Right in the midst of your clinging. You see? Perhaps what is true, though, is that for the majority of us, you won't even catch yourself in the midst of your grasping. You will catch yourself after the grasping. You would have grasped, and the moment would have slipped away, and you would have experienced the pains of separation and loss. And while you're going through your suffering, it'll dawn on you, oh, I had clung to something. I was grasping. Practice a little bit more, and you'll start catching yourself grasping in the moment. Practice more, you will start catching yourself before you grasp. That's what we want. So the mystics are not saying that we have to become ascetics and disappear up in mountains and caves. You understand? That's not their teaching. They say experience all of this, enjoy all of this, just do not cling. That's the only condition. Enjoy life, but don't cling. Try to make the distinction between enjoying life and clinging. Sometimes that distinction is not very clear in our minds. We think that we can only enjoy a thing by owning it, grasping it, clinging it, possessing it. You see? If I don't own it, I can't enjoy it. And when we have this kind of belief in us, we set ourselves up for much misery. Right? Now look at the weather out here. It's beautiful. Enjoy it. Don't try to grab this. Don't try to take it home. Don't try to bottle this. Don't try to put it in your refrigerator. You see? Don't insist that tomorrow be like this. Right? Don't even insist that the next moment be like this. Be in this moment. Enjoy this thing. But we are so busy grasping, we can't enjoy it. That's the problem. Please make a note. If you're not enjoying life, it's because all of your energy is in grasping. Grasping. And when you're a grasper, your whole future lies, your whole happiness lies somewhere in the future. Everything you're doing is for a happiness that you're going to experience tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow will always come in the form of a today. So at some point, you're going to have to learn how to live in the now. It is the only space to live. But we have to practice daily, consciously, setting aside some time. Let it be a sadhana. This practice of letting go. Because this is the secret of living. You can't live if you don't know how to let go. You just can't live. So you have to practice that. And as you're practicing this letting go of the events, circumstances, and the phenomena that is flowing through your mind, as you learn how to stop grasping, stop clinging, stop trying to possess it, stop trying to hold it, freeze it, right? To snatch it, right? To covet it. As you are practicing creating this attitude of let go, add to that the practice now of letting go of the most important thing, this body and mind and your senses. This is what meditation is. Meditation is the practice of letting go of your body, your senses, and your mind. It is the ultimate form of practice. It is the practice for which all these others are preparation on. By your deep reflection each day on the nature of impermanence, of change, and of death, on your daily practice of letting go. These are all preparation for the practice of letting go of this body, these senses, and this mind. The practice that we call meditation, aliyasa. And in that, for those of you who are fortunate to know a way to do that, you see, this becomes the heart of the practice in this Bardo of life, where you sit your body down into some asana, into some posture that is comfortable. And you start withdrawing your attention, because essentially that is what is happening at the time of death. At the time of death, your attention will be pulled from your outward life first, then the senses, then the elements, all the way in to the center. And unless you have practiced the withdrawal, the willing withdrawal of your attention, then it will be the experience of pulling a fine piece of Muslim cloth across a bush. It will just rip you into threads. So it is in the Bardo of living that we need to begin the practice of consciously withdrawing our attention from the five elements. And this we do by first taking a firm seat, a firm asana, a firm posture, right? And with the attitude that we know one day I'm going to have to be still anyhow. There's a time coming when I won't be able to get up from this seat at all. And I might as well start learning how to deal with this now. And as we take this firm posture, then you start feeling and when you start withdrawing the attention, when the tension start automatically withdrawing from the body. If you can just sit long enough, the tension will automatically withdraw. If you can sit for 2 hours just motionless, still, without movement, the tension, the body will automatically start dropping. You will start experiencing consciously what you will experience at the time of your death. But the key is that you will be consciously experiencing it to be under your control. And you go on moving deeper into that. And yes, the body will have pain. Don't flee. Because find out how I'm going to deal with this pain that is moving through my body. It's hurting so bad. My legs is hurting so bad. My back is hurting. My neck is hurting. It's so uncomfortable. Yes, it is. But now, here's a great opportunity for you to develop the skill to deal with the discomfort of the physical body, because a time is coming when this body will become even more discomfortable and you will not have a chance to get up. Here, you can get up in a there, you cannot get up at all on your deathbed. And then how would you handle that discomfort? So we're breaking up this dying into little pieces that is manageable and accustoming ourselves to it. And then we start withdrawing our attention from our senses. The eyes are closed. We find a quiet place where the other senses are not aggravated. And then we start withdrawing from that. We're not trying to see anything. We're not trying to hear anything. We're not trying to feel, smell, or touch anything. All of the senses are shut down. We're withdrawing our attention from all of this. And yes, we will start having the experience of death now. It will become even more like the experience of death as these senses begin to deliberately be shut down. The attachments, all of that start rising in you. Yes. All of the attachment that you have that is associated with each sense. And please make a note that each one of your senses is attached to something. You need to know what it is. To what is your sense of sight attached? To what is your sense of hearing attached? To what is your sense of feeling attached? Taste and smell and so on. You are attached in that area. And when you begin to withdraw your attention from the senses, you encounter the pains of separation from those things that the senses have become attached to. Get used to it. Get used to it. Get used to being sitting there after 2 hours, and now you're very thirsty. Get used to that, because when the elements of fire begin to dissolve in you, you will experience much thirst, much parchness of throat. You better get used to this. Conquer it now. After we have withdrawn the attention from the senses, now we're withdrawn from the thought modes, the mind, the modes of thoughts itself, our thinking. Now you're not even thinking about the world anymore. You withdraw your attention. You keep your attention focused in your mantra, not allowing your mind to drift off into considerations of anything. Because what are you thinking about when you meditate? You're thinking about the things you attach to. You're thinking about the stuff you attach to. In meditation, that is what your mind does. It dwells on your attachments. That's what makes it so difficult for you to concentrate. That's what makes it so frightening. And when your mind starts withdrawing and you start becoming disconnected from the ability to think about your attachment, a great fear rises up in you. This is the fear people undergoing in meditation. They say, oh, Bhagwan, I become terrified when I meditate. It scares me. Of course it scares you, because the meditation start coming close to the experience of death, and that just scares you to death. I'm saying get used to it, because there's going to be a time as you're laying on your deathbed where you can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. Get used to it. Practice. Get into it. This is true practice of the art of letting go. And once we have withdrawn the attention from the process of thinking via the use of our mantra, you see, then we drop the mantra itself. And the attention just rests in this darkness that you initially encounter when you come to the eye center, to the Ajna chakra. And just rest. Learn to sit in that darkness. Because that is what death will be like, sitting in this darkness. And death will not give you the option of running back up. You can't get up out of your death like you get up out of your meditation when you get tired, when your legs hurt too much, or when the pull of the world becomes too strong, or when there's something so really, really important that you must address. Here now you have that option. You can break your meditation. Oh, I better go and take care of this. I'll do some meditation. No. At the time of death, you're not going to have that option. And if you have not developed the stamina to rest in that now, you will not have the stamina to rest in it. And please try to understand, I am not talking to you about something that is theoretically going to happen to you. This is not no option. You don't have no option in this matter. And an intelligent person that really understands this, understands you have there's no option. You must become spiritual. You must do spiritual practice. There is no option. If you're intelligent, if you're very, very intelligent, then you will find yourself automatically doing spiritual practice. It's no longer a discipline. It's no longer a chore. It's no longer a struggle. It is no longer a feeling that you are giving up something at all. Right now you see your meditation for you, your spiritual practice. It's a great struggle because you feel like you're giving up something in order to do it. You got a lot of other things to do. You're busy. You're so busy with all your trivia. You're so busy washing your face, combing your hair, changing your tires, vacuuming in your cars out, keeping them clean, doing the housework, making grocery, watching TV. You're so busy. When you have done deep reflection, all of this kind of trivia drops out. With no discipline, automatically you begin to renounce this kind of trivia. Automatically you begin to move deep now into the course of wisdom that is reflected in the practice of meditation. This is a practicing of death. You're practicing dying. Every day you're practicing dying. And it makes sense because you're preparing yourself for your old age. I know you all are making matching contributions to your 401ks, right? You got saving bonds, you got mutual funds, you putting a little money away for old age and for a time when you can't work. That's practical, makes sense. But you're not putting away nothing for the time you're gonna be dead. What's up with that? You're making absolutely no preparation for when you're gonna die. You're making all this preparation for when you're gonna get old, as if you're gonna be old very long. How long will you be old? Just a few minutes in the scheme of things. And you're going through all this preparation. You're buying your plots even. Some are even done bought their cemetery space. That's good. That's a little better. You're coming close. Good. You got your gravesite purchased. You got your headstone purchased. That's great. Now go a little deeper. That's all I'm saying. Get into it. And just as a person that begins to prepare for old age when they're young, if you put that $25 a week, if you had started that when you were 18 and just let it occur at compound interest, by the time you're 65, you're in great shape. But you didn't start thinking about your old age until you start entering into your old age. Now you're 50 years old and suddenly it dawns on you that, oh God, I may not be working forever. I better put away some money. Now you got to struggle to save every penny you can get your hand on. But in your youth, you could have done it with ease. In the same way, this Bardo living is like being in your youth. Just a couple hours a day and preparing for your death will go a long way at the time of your death. It would occur much interest, but there has to be the understanding. And so as we withdraw the attention here to the Ajna chakra, into the darkness inside, and learn how to rest in this. How to rest in this. How to merge into this. And this is the most important ability to develop in this Bardo of living. It's because at the moment of death, you want to be conscious of it. You want to be able to rest in that. The moment of death is a great opportunity. For a fleeting moment, there's the opportunity to merge into the true nature of the mind and become liberated. If you miss, then you go into the afterlife. But even in the afterlife, you see, and what they call the Sambhogakaya, the Dhammata, the Buddhist. Even in that afterlife, there's an opportunity to become enlightened in the afterlife. It's interesting, isn't it? But remember, I'm saying most of us, you're going to even miss your afterlife. You don't have enough awareness. The period of the afterlife, the Dhammata stage, the mind state would have hit, pure mind, pure emptiness would have hit, you wouldn't have caught it. But right after that moment hits, the mind starts unfolding itself again. First manifesting its energy, its power. The energy and power out of which everything comes into being. That energy and power is experienced in the form of light and sound and colors. These tattoos have color. These earth elements have colors. And you see all of that. We won't revisit that material. The point I'm making is that it is an opportunity for you to again realize and recognize something that is closer to your true nature. But if you miss, you missed. And then you find yourself in the Bardo of becoming, right? That's where you will awake. But even that has an opportunity. So there's opportunities all along the way. It's just if you have practice. But the best opportunity is at the very moment of death. Because it's so easy then. You don't have to, the body will fall away. Your senses will go down. Now when you meditate, you see how difficult it is, you see, to withdraw your attention from your body? You're having a hard time. Oh, my mind keep running, oh, right. But at death, it's not gonna be no hard time. Gonna be painful, yes, but automatically it's gonna be pulled from the body, right? Automatically, you will lose awareness of the senses and all of the objects of the senses. Automatically, the mind will start dissolving. The ordinary mind, the undermind, or the undermind will dissolve. And this is if you could just remain aware, you will see who you really are. The moment of death is the greatest opportunity to see deep into the reality of who you really are. To get a glimpse for the first time of your divinity, of that God that is in you. That's to see in you the stuff that God is made out of. In the moment of death, you can see that, you can experience it, and you have the opportunity to become one with it. If you are aware, and if you have practice. If not, you miss. That is all. So you begin to see now how developing while alive this capacity to sit and rest in this soul will become very useful. As you do these practices, and remember, it's important to do all of the practices. If you don't do the introspection and the contemplation on the nature of life, if you don't see its impermanence, the facticity of its changing all the time, if you don't reflect on death and the inevitability of your own death, as well as the death of everything and everyone around you, it won't turn your mind seriously. You see, if you don't take death seriously, you will not take life seriously. How can you? It doesn't work any other way. So you have to do that, and then sit and let go of this body. Consciously let go. Start letting go of this stuff. Start practicing letting go. These then are the heart of the practice for this Bardo. If you are truly desirous of being as best prepared for death as possible, then these are the practices that we need to begin to implement and perfect them to such a extent that we're carrying around the awareness of our death continuously. We're always mindful of it, continuously. At any minute, we're ready to go. Any minute. If, they open up and start shooting right now, we can come here. Go with no problem. No problem. Ready to go. When you're ready to go, you're ready to live. Isn't that interesting? Ready to go. Capable of going. Capable of dying. Means to be capable of living. You're straight now. Fear drops away. After all, what could be more frightening than your death? Nothing. Failure to do that simply means that you're going to suffer a lot, an awful lot. So these then are the practices that the mystics have suggested, those of us who are desirers of true wisdom, what they call prajna, should engage into. Let us dissolve the aggregates now. In Buddhism, they talk about the five aggregates, skandhyas as they call it. Let us start dissolving all of these illusionary things that we are identified with now. Any questions? Comments? Most welcome, yes. Yes, sister.
I think that what you're saying is very pertinent to our times right now, because everything that we have known as a sort of a right as people in this society is disappearing very rapidly. Those of us in sales and things like for people who dream to have homes, they could own this, they can own that, and in our short lifetime, they are saying, you can be a part of that, you can lease that, you can, and all of these things are slipping away. The pension plans that were supposed to be there are stolen. The health insurance isn't guaranteed anymore. There's no welfare. And if we don't have this, and we are especially targeted
Absolutely.
as victims of these things going away. And if we don't have these kind of skills, we really be fully lost. Because we never got them. It just seems as though we were able to start to get them. They're being pulled back.
You're absolutely right. There's a kind of sociology, a kind of politics of it like this, right? That is useful. And the hope, Khadija, is that we will take our insights, you see, and let them impact us at every level of our living, right? It should flow into our life. These are not just insights to have in the park and then lose them when we leave the park. They have to inform and integrate and be a part of everything we do. That kind of insight, right? Because you're right, there's so many people that is in this Bardo of many depths, and that's all it is. It is a Bardo where you're constantly getting and losing. And it seems as if it's moving closer to being much more traumatic. So many people are going to lose their jobs. So many people don't have any security. And that is the thing that people have been grasping the most for, security. And it's becoming more and more difficult to generate for yourself the experience of any kind of physical and material security. Now, how do people cope with this new reality? Well, it's not such a new reality. It's always been around. But here it's making it very difficult for you to do this as an option. It's a great blessing in disguise. Because now, if you have not become spiritual, the new millennia is going to be difficult for you. Very difficult for you. If you have not gotten accustomed to living with uncertainty, the new millennia is going to be very difficult. Very difficult. If you are a black person and you don't know how to do this stuff, it's going to be very difficult in the next millennia. Very difficult. So you're absolutely right. Our whole survival will depend on the degree of spirituality we have been able to attain. Don't have much of it, it's going to be hell. Can you imagine being losing the income that you've been deriving from the government for all these years. I mean, that's traumatic, to say the least, you know. And that person needs some help. They need someone there to support and help them alleviate and make that adjustment. So it has a lot of consequences.
And when you look at history, historically, this whole thing of being living uncertain and being spiritual is why we survive as people.
It's the only reason we survived. It got us this far. And as we begin to lose that naked, authentic ability to deal with uncertainty and begin to try to replace it with 401ks and with cars and houses, what we really wind up doing was injuring ourselves spiritually. We actually cease to develop and transmit to our offspring that spirituality that had got us through the Ma'at. A kind of spirituality that gets you through all kinds of suffering. And so our modern generation of black people, particularly here in the diaspora, but even on the continent,
Yes, sir.
right,
Yes, sir.
has lost the foundation of their own inner spirituality. And as a result, you see, we're undergoing much suffering, much chaos.
Truly die. Huh?
Oh, we're truly dying. In fact, we're dying, and it's ugly. We dying ugly. It's one thing to die well, splendidly, but we dying ugly. Very ugly. Very ugly. When we lose a job, it's very ugly. When our relationships break up, it's a very ugly. Very ugly. Full of much, violence, revenge, pain. It's not an intelligent thing. It's not smooth. The master said that when you have got this art down to a science, he says, you can go through all of this separation and love and retain your sanity, pull your sanity out of these things as easily as you can remove a hair from butter. It gets smooth because you're not very entangled. You see, you're not very entangled. They're gonna be lost. What can you do? But like Khadija says, for black people, that loss is gonna be accelerated. Accelerated. And then the question is, how you gonna handle that? Because you have lost the skills of the ancestors down in antebellum South. You never even had them. Them brother, them sister could stand through it. They had something. You understand? They had something deep inside of them that could go without water across that Atlantic. You ain't got that stuff. You ain't made of that African material. You made out of this pseudo-African bullshit. You must have your 401k. You must have your mutual fund. You must have your car. You must have all of this. And without this, you will perish. Without this, you will absolutely go insane. And whenever you lose just a little bit of that, I see your humanity disappears. Your humanity is rooted in your ability to possess these things. That is what makes you feel like a human being, your bank account. Take your bank account and your humanity simply disappears. You're not African in the true sense of the word. African in the way that Ptahhotep or Kajami was African. African in the way that these ancient pharaohs were African. No, you're a million miles. You're not even as African as the slaves. You're not even as black as the slaves were. This is deep. You're right, Khadija. It's serious business. It's serious business. And the most important question, what you gonna do? Because you have denied that anything bad can happen to you. You're gonna always have your job, your income, your health. Oh, Bhagwan, I'm gonna be all right. I can see why you're talking about how the millennial will impact other people, but hey, I'm gonna be cool, man. You see, this ain't gonna happen to me. You're in denial. And so when it happens to you, and it will happen to you, you're really gonna have a hard time. You're really gonna have a hard time. I can remember as a young man, Khadija, one of the first jobs I worked in, right here in Indiana, where they're building all them pretty homes. Used to be a lamp company. I used to work there. And I'll never forget when the company was sold to some investors in Texas. And they came in and they bought their people. And there was a gentleman there named Frank Accidental. I still remember his name, an Italian guy. Had been with the company some 20, 30 years, I suppose, at that time. And the way I knew the company had been sold was I saw Frank Accidental crying. I'm seeing a grown man just in tears crying. He could not believe that he would have ever lost that job. And he lost it at a time when he could least afford to lose it. The children were still in college, you understand? He had upgraded his housing and, got that big house and all of this stuff here. And he could not believe that this was happening. I think Frank Accidental actually committed suicide. The impact of reality was so unexpected, and he was so ill prepared for it that he committed suicide. And isn't that what we do? When reality sets in, and if you're not prepared for it, you will either lose your mind or you'll commit suicide. I'm not sure there's a distinction between the two. You're not prepared. When your husband leaves you, you ain't prepared for that. You never thought for a moment your husband would leave you. And then when he leaves you, you're gone. You're not prepared for the changes in relationship. You think this woman that you're in relationship is gonna be feeling toward you the same thing that she felt 25 years ago when she married you. You are in pure illusion. It ain't even the same woman no more. How they gonna feel the same? Person is not even there anymore. It has flowed. It has changed. It is a part of the Tao, constantly moving. And you have failed to adapt. When we talk about really integrating this insight into our day-to-day living, we're talking about integrating the insight into your day-to-day living. And remember, there is no exception. Nothing is outside of that. There's nothing sacred. Not your relationship with your wife, your children, your boss, your brother, your sister, nobody, your friends, your investment, everything is in relationship to you just like that. And you better have the prajna, the wisdom to deal with that. And the mystics say, when you are able to understand that, just rest in this wisdom. Rest in this wisdom. Take refuge in this wisdom. You see, it's beautiful, the early Buddhists, the three treasures. There's some Buddhists here. Brother, you're a Buddhist, right? You study Buddhism? To somebody, I thought here was a Buddhist. But in any case, in Buddhism, the three treasures is refuge in the teachings. The Buddhist says, Buddha, Dhamma Saran Gachiman, I take refuge in the teachings. You got to take refuge in these teachings, the teachings of the truth. It's a refuge. They say, Buddham Saran Gachamani. I take refuge in the Buddha, the teacher. In Saga Saram Gachamani, I take refuge in the Sangat, the community of seekers. These are our refuges. But the best refuge is to take refuge in the wisdom of your own weak heart. And if you can't take refuge in that, it's going to be difficult. But this is what it's about. So Khadija, I mean, we could go on all evening because that subject is really, really, it is so vital, so pertinent, to what you say. And it is the thing that is needed most among any group of people who are about to be threatened with a complete assault on our concepts of what is security, all our feelings of security.
And then I thought about, of my parents mentioning that they were in the South during the Depression and had no concept that it was going on. I mean, they didn't know about it until they heard about Africa and the North and it was over. Because nothing changed.
Nothing changed?
They still lived off their gardens and nothing changed for them.
Nothing changed.
But it'll be so different for us
Yes.
now.
You will be jumping off of the ledges.
Yeah.
on Wall Street, your portfolio will crumble. Right? Stocks and bonds that you think are incorruptible, certain, will absolutely deliver. You don't know how fickle it is, how a company can go into bankruptcy, spiral into bankruptcy, and watch out all of the equity in your stock. And you've been carrying your portfolio for 20 years, counting on it to feed you in your retirement, and the damn thing become worthless. How you gonna handle that? Yes, sister?
Bhagwan, could you speak on this thing about it? A lot of people say why death come in threes. You know,
Death comes in threes?
Yeah, it's like three people may die, and say like